Hey, this is Jahan from Tiberius, and you're listening to the Progcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Progcast. I'm your host, Dario, and this is episode 61. We're recording this on, today is Wednesday, the 10th of June. So we're recording this a week early, because next week I'm going to have some exams, and I need to keep a clear head. Yeah, so last week for you will have heard an episode with Kairos, with Adam Warren from Kairos, super awesome band from the UK as well. And yeah, this week we have Jahan from Tiberius, from all the way from Scotland.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. Great to have you on the show. Yeah, without further ado, let's jump just right in. As you might have heard in a previous episode of ours, what's in your Walkman? What have you been listening to lately, Jahan?
It's a funny one because I think for a lot of my normal day-to-day life pre-corona, I do a lot of driving for my day-to-day job, which means I'm in the car for sort of 3-4 hours a day sometimes, and that gives me the best opportunity to try and listen to as much music as I possibly can, because there's nothing else to do other than keep your eyes on the road.
Yeah.
But I think because I've been at home a lot more, my opportunity to listen to music's been a little bit different. So I've been only been listening to music when I've been sort of out for walks or kind of cooking and stuff, and it's been a real bit of a mixed bag. So prog-wise, I've obviously been checking out the new kind of Protest the Hero singles, which are sounding awesome. Really can't wait for the album to come out. I'm sure anyone listening to this that knows who I am is probably waiting for me to drop the protest bomb at some point. I checked out some of the Ebonivory stuff, Dario, that you recommended to me. I was really thoroughly impressed with that, so I've been digging them a lot. I've had Monument's latest album, Phronesis, on constant rotation. I just think that it's such a good album. And some of the sort of more left field stuff I've been listening to has been like the new Lady Gaga album has been awesome.
Okay.
A lot of people weren't expecting me to say that, but I think it's a real fantastic piece of work.
Adam actually had Dua Lipa and his playlist. So, and I it's cool. I like to change things up a little bit and not only have like the 10,000th mention of Dream Theater or Genesis.
Yeah, totally. I actually find myself listening to more varied things now than I probably do listen to just sort of straight up progressive metal. I think that's a really important thing to do, is sort of sample music from all genres. And I'm a real big fan of like 80s pop as well, some synthwave stuff, sort of old school kind of metal as well. So just a bit of everything really.
Yeah. Have you heard the new album from Volcor X?
I haven't. No.
It's a French.
Should I be checking that out?
A French synthwave artist, and it's really amazing. It's like your planet belongs to us now or something. He's like this funny concept that this Volcor X, persona is an alien, like coming to coming to Earth and annihilate
cool.
the planet.
I'll have to check that out. I like things planet. Like that. It sounds pretty fun. I think that's what it should be all about, is having a bit of fun with your music. So
yeah,
you should check that out.
I also brought a relatively new song today. I will only recommend one song today, and it's kind of a timely song, like it's strangely fitting song for these times, sadly. And it's Strange Fruit, the cover that Oceans of Slumber put out a couple of weeks ago.
Right, okay.
Actually,
is that not a Kate Bush song or something?
No, way before that. Billie Holiday, I think, made it famous in the 30s, and it was about the lynchings in the southern parts of the United States at the beginning of the last century. So it's a heavy topic as it is, and then with Cammy's soulful vocals, and then with the times that are with the stuff that's going on in the world right now, it's even more bone chilling to hear this song sung by Cammy. And they also have a new single for their upcoming album. They just announced their upcoming self-titled album for September, and they also have like the first single that will gonna be on this album. But Strange Fruit was a standalone single, and I cannot recommend enough to listen to it.
I'm gonna check it out, man. I think that sounds like a really poignant time to listen to it as well. I think a lot of people will be, trying to shy away from what's going on out there. Maybe they've, been saturated on social media, and I think it's a really important thing that we force ourselves to be almost engulfed with what's going on and really take it on. So yeah, I'm definitely going to check that track out, and I suggest that all your other listeners do too.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to include this song in the show and give it a shout out. With that out of the way, dude, you have a band. That band is called Tiberius.
I'm so sorry, Mum. I'm sure my credit card is pretty sore as well right now. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, and my financial foibles and whatever more, I've got a band.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it. I guess a lot of people haven't heard about you guys yet. You're called Tiberius, and you're from Edinburgh in Scotland.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're still an undercard band, I think is probably fair to say. And I think there's a lot of contributing factors to that. We started in 2014, and we decided to kind of try and just be the local band for a little bit. For some of us, it was our, it was our first band. It was just for me, it was my first originals band, and I think it took us a few years to kind of figure out what we were doing. I know that. I mean, I've tracked all the Tiberius EPs and releases in my house, so it was every EP we learned something different. We learned how to get that a little bit better, and on this album I think it's just kind of pushed me to really figure out exactly what I need to do, and had a lot of friends helping me, a lot of speaking to people. But yeah, ultimately we started in 2014. It was an idea for, I just left music uni, I guess, and it was an opportunity for me to go, right, I'm not doing anything guitar wise now other than working in a guitar shop and teaching a little bit. Well, how can I kind of keep my hand in and make sure that I don't lose all these chops I spent 6 hours a day trying to learn, and trying to improve on. So it was an idea to kind of start a band, write really challenging music, and sort of push myself. And brought my friend Chris, who's the other guitarist, along for the ride. He wanted to improve as a guitar player, so we kind of wrote and sort of challenged each other with these different riffs that we're coming out with. And Grant, our singer, lived with Chris, and we always had an idea that we wanted to bring him on as our vocalist. He's sort of been a kind of long-time friend of mine from college, and he sort of introduced me to the rest of my now friend group. And we kind of, one of the really big important things about Tiberius is that we're friends first, and I think that's why a lot of the dynamic works really well. I knew Ryan from college. He was the year above me. Grant sang in a band with him, with John Lord from Deep Purple, actually. He had an opportunity to play with him, which was really cool.
Wow.
And yeah, so we've all known each other and all been in the same friendship circle before Tiberius really happened. And I think that's been one of the kind of positive things from us, that we can do that.
Yeah, great. And you already mentioned that you have a couple of EPs out. Like the first one was a self-titled EP in 2015. The second one was called The Beautiful Ones in 2017. Both 4-track EPs. Yep. And then what I found interesting when I looked at the discography on Bandcamp, it says the single Dissipate came out in March 2018. Is that right?
That's right. Yep, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
But it still ended up on your upcoming debut full-length album, A Peaceful Annihilation, that's coming out on the 28th
26th of June.
6th of June.
Yeah, so not long now.
Yeah.
And by the time your listeners hear, that's even less time. So, yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of a lonely single. I think, again, this goes back to, Tiberius being kind of the first band for a lot of us, or the first kind of proper band where we had to learn as we went, and none of us had any sort of previous experience of being in a band that was, trying to schedule releases or trying to capture a wider audience than our sort of local music scene. So we released, I think a lot of it was to do with, we were aware that the sort of production on our first 2 EPs was maybe kind of a little bit too raw for some people. Maybe didn't showcase what we were, quite good at, and maybe the songwriting wasn't as sort of nuanced or developed as it is now. And we thought, right, well, at one point we nearly actually decided to re-release both EPs, retracked, reproduced, sort of do like a sort of Tiberius 2.0. And then we thought, well, actually, I'm writing this new song. Why don't we just move forward and let's release this and go, here is what we're about now. And, up our game production wise, up our game songwriting wise, and do our first music video and start to take things a little bit more seriously. And we got some good recognition from that. We got to, do a little tour off the back of it. We got to play some more shows, and it opened us up to, kind of a festival slot. So it was all, real positive. And we thought that with the album coming out, the song still really fitted within the theme. And it just felt like it was such a big point in our sort of musical career and our development that it would be a shame not to honor that song in a bigger body of work. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we decided to put it on the album.
All right, so cool. What else happened between 2018, March 2018, and now? I mean, have you been like writing songs constantly and like just collecting them until you had a full-length release completely written, and then went into the studio and recorded it, or how did the process go?
It was a strange one. I think that so in 2018 we had our first kind of UK headline tour where we played I think about 8 dates over 10 days in April. Then we done a few kind of warm-up shows, and then we played main stage at Techfest in 2018, which was really cool. And then we decided that, right, it's time to stop playing shows for a little while, stop, playing this EP material, and actually go back and let's get to work on this album. So we'd had kind of, quite a bit of it written, I think. I think by that point we had about 9 songs written by the end of 2018. And then they still needed a bit of finessing and a little bit of work. So we took some time to sort of tweak the songwriting a little bit and just get it right. Chris, the other guitarist, went off to New Zealand to travel for a few months. And I will admit that things kind of slowed down a little bit there because we wanted to try and continue working on the songs, but the idea of a 4-month break was just too tempting. Mm-hmm. But in that time, we did work on things and sort of kind of tweak some of our songs. And when he came back, it was time to start tracking. So we started tracking sort of early 2019, I would say. And then we just realized that ultimately, even though we had these guitar profiles, I'm sure most kind of modern music bands are now, writing their songs in Guitar Pro. But when you put these things into like, a Logic project or a Pro Tools project and you start tracking them, the songs then start to come to life, and then the real songwriting for us really begins. What we had there was a skeleton, and we started fleshing out all these ideas and changing arrangements and then adding things and going, well, what if we did this? What if we done this? And, new instrumentation took place, and different, just playing around with vocal harmonies and influences, and just try to bring different elements in to really make the songs what they are now, which is, for me, is a really exciting part. And because it's our first album, we really wanted to take the time to get that right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked now a little bit about the history of the band, how the band started, and the history leading up to that first full-length album, Peaceful Annihilation. But we haven't actually touched the subject. How does Tiberius sound? for the listeners that have never heard of you before.
It's a tricky one, and I think we ride some very, very I would say almost tight lines, I guess, because I think there's a whole lot of influences from sort of modern progressive metal, as well as some old school aspects. I mean, we're all real big fans of likes of Iron Maiden, but we also have some newer influences like Protest the Hero, 12-Foot Ninja, Vola, Coheed and Cambria, Between the Buried and Me, and the Contortionist. And while some of these influences might not immediately jump out to you, they are there. I think one of the things that people say to us is our music is quite dense, and when you start to peel back some of those layers, you start to hear a little bit more of specifically, okay, maybe that's what they're going for there, or maybe that's there. But yeah, we have quite a lot going on top of each other that sometimes it does just sound like a bit of a wall of sound. But I think that's just I think if you were to cut my brain open, that's what you would find.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that statement, especially the first two bands you actually mentioned, like the first band you mentioned on the show today, and also the first band you specified about the like old school metal. When I first listened to the album, I had like immediately the feeling of a love child of Protest the Hero and Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I think with Grant's voice, we're never going to escape that. It's a cool thing because there's very few. This is going to sound lame, but for me, Grant's a very talented singer. I'm really privileged to get to work with him, and having him as a friend's been really cool. So being able to do that, and within the sort of progressive metal genre anyway, there's not an awful lot of singers that are similar to Grant in that sort of way. There seems to be sort of archetypal vocalists. You're either a screamer or you've got quite a high pitched, airy, clean voice. But there's very few, I think, within our scene that's kind of doing what Grant does with his voice, and I think some people might find that jarring or maybe just a little bit different, and it takes a little while to get used to. But yeah, I would say it's a kind of a defining feature that separates us from quite a few bands.
I think it really fits the music as it takes on the energetic, forward-driving sound more. When you think of like the more like singers like Einar Solberg from Leprous, or Jim Gray from Caligula's Horse, they have this like very soft falsetto head voice quality
absolutely
to it, and I just have the feeling your music is like too fast forward, without being not proggy, like too energetic in a metal sense, and also like tempo wise, it needs a lot of
it needs to have something that can carry it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from just, again, our sort of background in sort of old school heavy metal. I'm a big, as I say, Iron Maiden fan. I'm a big Extreme fan as well. I grew up listening to tons of different music, but I went through phases of, like Helloween or Sonata Arctica with Tony Kakko and loads of different stuff. So I think that it seems to be that the more people speak to me and the rest of the guys about what we're into, I think a lot of it makes more sense.
Yeah. So what's your favorite Helloween singer? Have you seen the?
You're expecting me to remember his name now.
The reunion gig with all three. Have you seen that in Wacken?
Was that the one in Brazil?
No, in Wacken, like 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago.
I remember
Wacken.
I recently watched something on YouTube that was a live show with the two singers, singing obviously "I Want Out" because "Keeper of the Seven Keys" is the best album. But I'd have to go with the original. I can't remember his name. I'm really sorry, but it's a hell of an album, and I think a lot of what I do is probably subconsciously rooted in some of that old school stuff I used to listen to, or still do.
I have to admit here, I'm not that firm on that history of metal bit as well, because I'm not sure if, like, I think I think Kai Hansen was the first singer from Gamma Ray. Kai Hansen quit Helloween to form Gamma Ray, or how was it?
That sounds about right. Gamma Ray, again, another awesome band that I used to listen to when I was probably around about 14. They were awesome. I'm trying to remember what was their big hit again? That was a great song.
I just remember the song Gamma Ray, but that was not Kai Hansen singing. That was actually Ralph Shapers from Primal Fear singing.
Oh yeah. So the power metal scene is a very incestuous scene, I think, just because there's very few singers that can actually do it, so they probably all just share their guys out, you know.
Yeah, that was.
They all just move around one degree.
I think it must have been, end of 80s, beginning of 90s.
Yeah.
During that period, so I guess both of us were like coming into this music later. Right. The other one would be Michael Kiske. I'm not sure who was the first one, but I think it was Kai Hansen.
In my head it was Kai Hansen, but I could be very wrong. You just, you know, there's like you say, it was a very incestuous time with everyone sharing singers. So yeah.
Anyway, the Helloween fans will lynch us now for this, like, butchering the timeline.
Yeah, it's tricky. You know, it's
Come
on, if there was ever a time to not play Germany, now is probably it. But it's one of those things where I can only remember so many singers and band members, and I think when you're 14, you're not focusing on I'm not focusing on the members so much as the music, other than maybe the guitar players of some bands, you know, being a guitarist first and foremost. Yeah,
you just said something about playing in Germany. We might touch on the subject of playing live later, maybe, probably.
Is it okay if I cry?
Okay. My colleague and a technical director here just handed me a really nice book called "Damn the Machine."
Oh, yeah?
The story of Noise Records.
Okay.
Forward by Hansi Kirsch of Blind Guardian. And there he showed me. Helloween got its start as Gentry in 1978, the brainchild of guitarist Kai Hansen and guitarist vocalist Pete Sealk. Yeah. And
all right, yeah.
Pete Sealk.
So he was originally the guitar player.
Yeah, that as well. And Pete Sealk also had, there was another band Pete Sealk did later, but I can't remember the name now. Anyway, thank you, Randy.
Welcome to PowerCast.
Very nice. Let's go back to the Peaceful Annihilation. We talked about the music in depth, a little bit more in depth now, and the particular influences there. When I listened to it for the second or third time last night, at one point I thought, okay, these lyrics that I'm hearing are really interesting, and I reach out to you if you can get me a lyrics sheet, actually. So can you fill us in about the themes and topics you're talking in the album, and who wrote the lyrics? Was it like a band effort? Was it like your vocalist or?
No, yeah, of course. Well, first of all, I would say that Grant, our singer, wrote the lyrics. I think there's, that he is probably the most well-read out of all of us. And he's a PhD student. The man lives in books, and he's, he's a lot smarter than I am. But yeah, so he would start. He wrote the lyrics. I mean, when we were recording, we'd maybe tweak things just so it would flow better or whatever. But ultimately, they were written by Grant completely. So the album, the title of Peaceful Annihilation kind of gives you an idea of the kind of broad spectrum of what we're dealing with. It's we are quite I would say, I wouldn't. I don't know if I want to say political. Probably just we've got our finger on the pulse of a lot of issues, and we wanted to kind of talk about them. There's songs in there about sort of overcoming toxic relationships. There is songs that deal with domestic abuse. There's songs that deal with sort of our sort of faith in technology, extinction prevention, those kind of things, and even cults. So if you look at the last song, Kai Tuma, if you Google the word Kai Tuma, figure out what that's from. There's a nice little piece of knowledge there for anyone that checks it out. But ultimately, we wanted a title to reflect the idea that we're talking about, chaos in the world that's maybe behind closed doors, or you might find at home, or it's not just these big end of the world wars, and things like that. There's a whole lot of other bad stuff going on in the world that is, like I say, almost behind closed doors or talked about in hushed tones. And we wanted to talk about those things, and the idea of a peaceful annihilation.
All right. Very interesting, and I think it's always great to see bands like putting emphasis on meaningful lyrics, and when they really want to say something with it. A last aspect, from a creational standpoint. For the album, and also actually all the singles and EPs. If I look at the timeline here, it looks like you've been working with the same artist for the cover artwork for all of them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Alex Spencer, who, if you're looking for her artwork, is Alexhibition on most social medias, or Old Bones Emporium. So Alex is actually Chris's girlfriend. And we've always been a big fan of her art, even before those two got together. And in fact, I think a lot of us have actually got some of her original artwork in our houses. I own, I think, at least 3 pieces of her work. There's a few. Actually, in fact, I've got 4, as well as some other pieces dotted around me. And I think that her artwork is really nuanced, and there's a lot going on. It's very dense. It's got beautiful line work. And I think it reflects the music that we make quite well. There's always a lot going on. There's always a lot of detail, and I think the longer you look or the longer you listen to something, you always find something more. And I think it works out really, really well for us. Plus, another thing about Tiberius is we're always looking to support the people around us, and we've got an opportunity to support one of our artist friends. In fact, one of the T-shirts that we've got for this merch run is designed by one of our other very good friends, Sophie Bellingham, who designed our long sleeve, and again, she's another great artist and tattoo artist as well. And we like to support the people close to us in any way we can.
Awesome. Looking at the cover artworks now, I see the cover artwork for the single Dissipate, which we talked about earlier in the show, and I think I remember seeing a time-lapse video, where she was drawing it. That was like a mandala, super soothing and amazing to watch.
It's very therapeutic, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the beauties of kind of modern technology. I think is being able to sort of record every line that you make and then watch it back in a video. I mean, a lot of our work that Alex does is completely hand-drawn, and it's then digitized at the last minute. So, for example, the Peaceful Annihilation artwork exists as a watercolor painting first.
Yeah.
And then we scan that in Illustrator, and then it's then, sort of lined out, etc. But yeah, all of these pieces exist as physical pieces of art first. But I think actually Dissipate is one of the first ones that was actually just purely digitized. But yeah, everything else we do is it starts off as physical artwork.
Yeah, I'll absolutely love if you look at at like a band's discography and Maiden. You have there's just by the
there's an element of consistency there. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. That and sometimes it's so weird if you look a band up and you looking at their discography, and there are like so many different styles and different logos maybe at some point. But on the other hand, might also depend on the band and also on the development of the band. For example, if I think about Leprous, for example, they changed their style also quite significantly musically over the last 10 years. So, of course, there's bound to be that this also is reflected in the cover artwork, right?
No, of course. I mean, you look at some of their early stuff and then you compare it to things like, like Bilateral or Molina, and the artwork on these albums is very, very different. And I think it works for some bands. I have a sort of similar problem, or not problem, but a similar sort of thing with producers, I guess. So where our production on albums, so for example, you listen to an album's a range of albums from an artist or a band, and they've kept the same sort of producer or engineer or person who does the mastering quite consistent for a number of years, and then they bring out a new release and it's a kind of whole new, personnel of people, and you're just like, what the hell am I listening to? This is a different thing, and it just takes you a minute or two just to readjust. I get that with I can get how you would get that with artwork as well.
So sometimes it also doesn't work out. What was the story with Nevermore's Enemies of Reality?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't listened to much Nevermore, if I'm completely honest, but I do remember a few people saying it was very, very different.
Yeah, but actually, you were just going into the production side of things, and I just I just noticed here that A Peaceful Annihilation was actually mixed and mastered by Merrick De La Fuente.
De La Fuente, I think it is. Yeah, Merrick.
Merrick
from Exist Immortal.
Yes,
he's a good guy. He's a real good guy. We when we were recording Dissipate, we wanted the clear thing for us was, let's get the production right now. Okay, let's step up our game. Let's see what happens when we spend X amount of money, and we look for someone that's out with our sort of comfort zone of friends. Because the first EP was mixed by our original drummer, and we had it mastered by Alan Douches at West Music, who's a big name from a lot of guys. Yeah. And it was cool. I think we learned about the sort of what each process does in that respect. And then we got Pedram Valiani of Frontier and Sectioned, who's a very good friend of ours, to mix our second EP, which was mastered by Brad Boatwright, who does a lot of the Converge stuff. And then we decided, okay, cool. We've had two quite raw sounding EPs, and they sound good in their own right, and they were right for what we were doing at the time. And we thought, right, let's look at what happens when we really polish this up. So we looked at a few options, the sort of usual guys at that sort of kind of price point or whatever, and kind of who's making music we like at that time. And it came down to us speaking to Merrick, who we met because we played a show with Exist Immortal in Edinburgh. And we sort of put the feelers out, checked out what he was doing at the time, and we really liked the sound of the Exist Immortal records.
Sorry, I was just about to ask you if you guys met at TechFest maybe or something.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we bumped into him a bunch of times, but by this point we already knew Merrick from playing in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
That was a real cool show, actually, and it was kind of one of our first shows where we got to play with another tech band, really, I would say, because there's not much of a kind of progressive or tech metal scene up here. I mean, there's lots of artists that have predominantly gone online. We're certainly rich in those kind of artists, but we don't have an awful lot of, I would say, local bands in inverted commas that are playing the sort of progressive tech metal music that we do.
Yeah, but you're right. Exist Immortal is just an insane band. I saw them at Complexity Fest a couple of years back.
I love that festival, man. It's such a good festival.
And their still to date last album, Breathe, it's just a banger. One hit after another, and they're finally coming up with a follow-up album. So I'm also excited.
Yeah, so the single for, was it Dust Cloud, dropped a few weeks ago?
Yes, 2 weeks, not too long ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. I think they've really hit their stride now. The visuals for that music video as well are beautiful. They've got a bit of a sort of synthwave vibe going on with a big sort of kind of rising sun style logo behind them. I'm super into it.
It actually looked a lot like the Affinity cover from Haken.
Yeah, it does. Although I don't think anyone can trademark that sort of synthwave, retrowave style logo anymore. I think everybody's taking it.
Yeah, right.
But it's a great song, and I think they've done really, really well. And yeah, Merrick's a great guy. He's and just going back to sort of why we chose him, we went with Dissipate as a sort of almost a bit of an acid test to kind of go, right, okay, here's what happens when we do some production and we go with someone that kind of gets us a little bit more, is doing sort of similar music to us already. And he's a super versatile guy. He does lots of different styles of music, and I think that suits us quite well because we aren't just a straight up progressive metal band, or we don't just do, like gent or whatever. We do, there's gospel sections, there's disco bass lines, there's all sorts of stuff going on, and we need someone that is willing to just bend to that and kind of figure out, here's what this needs. I mean, we have like shakers and stuff on our tracks and in places, and we needed someone that was willing to just attack it from a sort of multi-genre point of view.
Yeah, and
if that makes sense,
Yeah, absolutely. And Exist Immortal is like it was so cool to when they played here in Munich. I spent some time with the guys, and it was so interesting for me to find out that they're like a lot of their main influences are actually hip hop artists, and that kind of sound. That's where they get their grooves and riffs from. That's where they get this inspiration from.
Absolutely. I think the guitar player, one of them is actually not Mikey, the other guy. He is a hip hop artist on the side as well. Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that was totally eye opening to me actually. Another thing that we also mentioned before already. You done a fair share of live gigs before. Now, of course, that's not possible at this moment in time.
It was. It's a real good year to be releasing a debut album. I'll tell you that. It's there
would have been a show where we might have met in London for the Novena.
The album launch show, that's really disappointing. I really do feel for Harrison and the guys. Yeah, big time for that one.
I had plane tickets. I had an Airbnb booked. I would have been there.
Man, we all had plane tickets to something that got ruined. I'm still fighting with EasyJet to get my tickets for Prime Fest back. I was really excited to go and see Prime Fest and check out Copenhagen, but yeah, I'm still in the argument with the airline to get my refund.
Yeah, I have to do that as well. But I was like pushing it off because they said, you can book another flight. And I was like, at this point, I don't know when I'll be able to go somewhere. Exactly. So how am I supposed to book another flight right now?
The future is so uncertain. I think that's the big thing. And I was the same, where it was a case of I'd rather have my money back and it's in my bank than, speculate on a flight to somewhere that you just don't know 12, 18 months from now where it's going to be. Yeah.
You still have, for this year at least, you still have two events, two festivals like in your schedule.
Yes, we do. Yeah, so we have Power Metal Quest Fest at the end of September, and then we have Radar Fest in October. So far, those guys are still going ahead with their festivals, and we're really excited to play them. Like I say, it was going to be a big year for us, as I'm sure it was for a number of bands. We'd planned a sort of small run of dates with Shattered Skies. We were going to do a number of kind of festivals and hopefully, try and do a few more towards the end of the year. And so now, sort of as everyone is kind of planning, it's going to be a case of planning for 2021 and beyond, other than those festival dates, I think is a safe thing. We've got I put on a few shows a year in Edinburgh and surrounding areas, and I've got a venue booked for October for something, and we just don't know if it's going to go ahead yet.
Yeah.
So we haven't announced anything, or we haven't announced a lineup for that, because again we just don't know.
Yeah.
And the other kind of concerning thing for I think a lot of bands is, I mean, everything that Tiberius does is all booked off of our own back. We don't have any management or representation. We are completely independent. Any gigs that we get, it's usually by me emailing and begging, or harassing in some cases. And yeah, so I think with the market going to potentially be saturated next year for live events, bands like us that don't have representation might struggle to get in with promoters that are maybe just speaking to their friends with booking agents because there's already a relationship there. The public might not be, super forthcoming and wanting to expose themselves to 1,000 other sweaty people. Or, in our case, 25. But, it really depends. It's a real challenge about what to do about next year and how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I think all we can do is be patient and see what it's going to be.
I mean, there's a greater good at stake here that I think we can all forego our live music festivals and our live events for the sake of saving humanity, essentially. And while I do really feel for those guys and bands that rely on this income and things like that, I have to applaud those bands that have adapted their business model to survive. The guys are now doing live stream concerts like Leprous. I mean, I don't know if you watched that one, but that was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
We in the UK, or certainly in Scotland, aren't able to do things like that yet because we're not allowed to be in the same room as people that are from other households. So it's very hard for us to do things like that. But anyone that's been able to very quickly adapt their business model as a band is just really impressive, and I think they really do deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, right. I was actually toying with the idea also to go to Radar Festival. Let's see what happens, but UK Tech Fest 2021, I think that looks a little bit more likely at this point, and looks like you will be playing there as well, right?
Yeah, so we've committed to Tech Fest for next year. We've said that we're willing to play it. As far as I'm aware, that means we're playing. But with these, it's so far away right now that anything could happen. I mean, next year ultimately is their 10-year anniversary as well. So I don't know if they're just going to bump that a year and then make 2022 their 10-year anniversary, or they're going to just own it and go, right, this is it. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as we're concerned, we're playing next year, and we're also rescheduled for the shows that we lost out on this year. So, for example, Red Crust Festival in Edinburgh, which is a bit of a mixture of fringe genres. From the metal scene, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing that on, I think, again, it'll be the Saturday. We're sort of trying to any commitments that we had for this year, we're trying to push to next year as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, I already made, in my mind, I made the commitment that UK Tech Fest was gonna be my number one summer festival I wanted to go to, and then Radar popped up as well with a sick lineup.
It's incredible, yeah.
We'll see how that spreads out over the next 1.5 years. I don't know. Anyway, it's been great talking to you, Jahan. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Really appreciate this. Thank you.
All the best with the release of your debut full-length album, A Peaceful Annihilation. Go listen to it. Go stream it. Go buy it on Bandcamp. Are there any special editions? I see there's some T-shirt bundles. That's cool.
So we're doing some T-shirt bundles, merch bundles. These are the sort of usual thing that we try and do for pre-orders. There's a couple of different merch options. We're toying with the idea of doing a vinyl at some point, but we have to sort of gauge interest first. But at the moment, you can buy physical CDs from us, T-shirts. We might even have some bottle openers left. The usual good band stuff.
All right, great. All the best with the release, and Yeah, I would say see you at TechFest next year latest.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Dario. I really appreciate this.
All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. As always, don't forget to check out the Spotify playlist. I will put all the songs, like also Tiberius best of, kind of together for you guys, and also, of course, the other songs that Jahan and I mentioned at the beginning in the What's in Our Walkman section. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. Listen to great music, and see you next week.
The Progcast is a production of Stuus Media and is recorded at the Moonbase Studios in Munich. It is produced by Randy M. Salo, Janine Stengel-Lewis, Blake Lewis, Kai Metzner, and Dario Albrecht. Our theme music is by This Is Not an Elephant.